Hello everyone and welcome back into the channel. Today we're doing a GeoGuessr Duels video. You won't see me on screen, but I am trying to reach Master rank, which is the highest rank. There's Champion, but it's above this. I'm ranked at 826, very close to Master, and we're trying to reach that in this video. I'm just going to be doing a voiceover giving my thoughts. I could immediately tell because blue on both sides of the license plate that this was Italy. I saw the Cagliari uh, on the sign, and I knew that that would be the city, but I did not know where that city was, so I figured I would just send somewhere between Rome and Naples. It kind of felt like that. You can see right here on the map that I had pulled up that Cagliari was visible. It's a pretty large city, but as I said, at this point, I did not know where that was, and my opponent did end up going Switzerland there, so I picked up some good damage. Here you could tell right away that this was somewhere in the US. The architecture and the paved street kind of just give away that type of US vibe. I'm thinking with the fall colors, maybe Pennsylvania, somewhere East Coast-ish. I don't want to send fully East Coast, so I do go ahead and go in for the Pennsylvania guess. Just a vibe check kind of guess. And it's way more East Coast, and my opponent was right on it, so I do pick up quite a bit of damage there. Here I'm instantly thinking like Spain or Italy. It has the red brick walls that I'd come to expect in that region. And I'm immediately confused zooming in on this sign. It has .net on it and a lot of English. And I'm not sure where. And it says Malta right on it. I'm just realizing that. I did not catch that at the time. And that's probably why my opponent went Malta so confidently. But anyway, I'm thinking here maybe this could be Israel. It kind of looks like Israel. I know it's not Italy. No, it's not Spain at this point. And um, I'm seeing these white license plates, which does not match up with Israel, which would have yellow license plates. But I look at that building and I think the architecture, that does kind of look like architecture you would see in that area. So I'm just going to go somewhere near Jerusalem and hope for the best. This was a round that I really botched, and my opponent was right on top of it. So I pick up quite a bit of damage, but I'm thinking, hey, I can still win this duel if I kind of basically win all of the rest of these rounds. Can pretty much immediately tell that this is Mexico just based off of the landscape and those little Joshua tree thingies. Um, I don't know where in Mexico, but I feel that it will be pretty northern. Um, I kind of live near that region, so kind of know the landscape. It seems like that landscape. There's mountains in the distance, so I kind of go next to a mountain range there. And it is indeed Mexico, just a little further south. We are going to pick up some decent damage on our opponent there. Bring it in to within a good round can win us the game. You can pretty much immediately tell after zooming out here that this is Portugal because that license plate has blue on one side and yellow on the other. I go ahead and go for a Lisbon guess because I don't know if my opponent, being a little bit lower ranked, will know that. It does have the .pt, so that gives that away. And we do lose just a couple points there, not too significant. First thought here is Lesotho, but it's a lot more green. So usually when it looks like Lesotho, but it's a lot more green, it's Eswatini. I'm trying to zoom in on this sign just to confirm, and I'm just not seeing anything. So basically, I'm looking at these road lines and I'm seeing that they're yellow on the outside. I don't see that a lot in Lesotho. It's pretty well paved. I'm not sure if that's a possibility in Eswatini. I know for sure that there's areas in South Africa near the Eswatini border that kind of look like this. So I'm thinking an Eswatini guess here is probably safe anyway. I'm just going to look around a little more just to get the vibe. And I decide to go in for it. So I'm just going to guess somewhere near that big city, a little bit outside of it. Hope for the best. And it was Eswatini. Our opponent went to South Africa. So we end up winning on that guess, which was a nice little win. At this point, we are ranked 836, maybe one duel away from entering into the Master Division. I'm thinking immediately here, I thought this could be Faroe Islands. And I look at this rack on the car. I don't recognize that from anywhere, either Faroe Islands or Iceland. It probably is in one of them, but I don't remember there being a rack on the top of the car in either place. Again, it's going to be one of those places. I'm fairly confident in that from the landscape, the architecture. I look at this sign and I thought, okay, that seems fairly Icelandic. Let me just go ahead and go Iceland. My opponent here is going to go Iceland as well. Spoiler alert. And it ends up being Faroe Islands. And they just get lucky, get a couple hundred points there because they were a little closer. So immediately here, we're thinking, oh, maybe Peru, maybe uh, maybe Colombia, somewhere in South America. I'm looking at the plates. I do see yellow on that plate, so that should be enough to tell me Colombia. I'm just going to send near Bogota. It's pretty central anyway, so it's usually a pretty good hedge here. I'm looking at that just to see whether or not there would have been some city name, and there wasn't. But my opponent sent the wrong country there, but they still ended up picking up a couple hundred points because it was all the way south near the border. Immediately here, thinking Indonesia because of the palms. Um, I'm looking around just to see if I can see a sign or a pole or something that hints me off as to where I am. I'm looking at that sign. I see blue. I think blue could be Malaysia, but this definitely not Malaysia. Look at that script. And I've seen script at times, I think, in Indonesia. I could be completely wrong on that. But I'm like, so is this northern India? Bangladesh? Bangladesh usually has a rack on the car. So it made me think probably not Bangladesh, but it could be Bangladesh. But I do end up going Indonesia here. And it is just Bangladesh. So should have gone with my uh, with what I knew instead of what my gut told me, because my gut definitely told me Indonesia, but the knowledge told me Bangladesh. And here I'm not getting tricked twice. So I'm going Indo. So I'm just gonna go Central Java here and hope that that's a good guess. Now some better players are able to read that and tell what the region and the municipality is. I'm not able to interpret that at this point. But hey, we do get a good guess in there and get some damage on our opponent. And I think I'm kind of clueless at this point, but I've definitely seen this type of knowledge in South Africa, so I send it right away. The reds, some red soil. We just kind of have these plains and this grass here, and it just ends up being further north, kind of by Eswatini. And I think instantly that this could be Norway. Um, It could also be Sweden. The trees, looking at around at the trees, are kind of looking like Finland-esque. And I'm not quite sure if there's any clear giveaways. But then I do see this sign that doesn't have the language of any of those places. So that definitely confuses me. And I'm thinking, okay, so maybe Baltics here. I see that pole, and I think, is that a Latvian pole? Um, so I'm going to go Latvia here, even though I have Estonian vibes for sure. My opponent ends up going Netherlands, so we do pick up some damage, even though that was South Finland. Instantly getting some New Zealand type vibes in this location. And I look at that sign and I can see that maybe that is that. I'm debating between New Zealand and Australia here. And I end up going Australia. I think, okay, this doesn't seem like New Zealand. I'm not quite sure. And I think, I can maybe catch my opponent off guard a little bit. And it does end up being New Zealand, and we both went Australia. If I had gone New Zealand, I probably could have won the game on that round, but I am forced to stick in it. Immediately thinking Singapore here with those black and white striped curbs. I'm looking at the .com and I'm confused. Um, I'm thinking it could be Dubai, but it doesn't look like Dubai completely. Um, and then I'm thinking, oh, maybe Malaysia, because Malaysia would have different conventions than Singapore, um, but still have the same type of, kind of general vibe. So I do end up going Kuala or Johor instead of Kuala Lumpur, and that doesn't pay off well for me. And I know by watching that round that I missed a lot of information. Here, first thought is maybe like a Greece or like a Spain. Yellow, yellow license plates. That tips me off to Israel. I, the whole area has some everything Mediterranean has a very similar vibe. So you definitely have to look for some context clues, license plates, languages, uh, street lines, whatever you can use to kind of t- tip the advantage in your favor. And we use it that time, and we do end up winning. And at this point, you have to get to 850 to get to master. So I'm thinking I have to continue. So I'm going to play again. I can immediately tell here that this is going to be a good game because of me and my opponent both being on the edge, on the verge of master. Pretty quick guess that this could be Australia. And then I think looks more New Zealand esque. I got fooled on a New Zealand last time. I'm not going to get fooled on a New Zealand again. Maybe I will eventually. I probably do again in this video at some point. But I see that street sign, and I know that to be a street sign from Auckland. So I'm going to go ahead and go in for Auckland. And I thought about hedging a little bit there, but then I decided to just go for it. And my opponent does go Australia, so we pick up a lot of damage to start the duel, which is a good thing for us to get out to that head start. Immediately thinking Austria, Slovenia, something along those lines. I'm thinking, oh, Europe roulette, that whole thing. Just trying to catch a website. Um, trying to catch some license plates. And I did see a sign that said Bergen, so I do go in at the last second for Norway and pick up some pointage. And here, I'm like, where would they have a college for John F. Kennedy? I'm not seeing a license plate. Not sure about the road lines, etc. I know it's going to be a Spanish country in the Western Hemisphere. Um, every country crossed my mind at some point, but I'm just going to go South Mexico. It kind of feels like that to me. Ends up being Colombia. So this is going to be evened out quite a bit. Here I'm looking at this sign. I'm going, is this Estonia? Is this Latvia? Um, what what country? What Baltic country is this? I'm looking at that pole. Man, I wish I knew my pole meta better. And just looking back at these signs to see if there's any recognizable places for me. I'm not going to remember random town names in that area. I do end up just kind of going for Latvia here. I tend to go for that Latvia quite a bit because it's in the middle, to be honest. And I'm like signaling, is that pole a Latvian pole? And apparently not. Estonia has gotten us again. Here we see this cross through the city, and I know that's from somewhere that I've studied, but I just can't remember quite where. Looking at the language, it seems quite French. Um, and I, but I'm not sure that it is France. And I see the .be at the last second here, so I know that it's Belgian, but I'm going towards France because it does feel French. And we just pick up like a couple insignificance points there. We have a rack on the top of the car, which is in a Spanish country, so it's immediately signaling Guatemala. I'm just trying to see if I can figure out what the municipality is there. It said something on there, but I don't have time to scan because my opponent sent right away. I'm just going to go somewhere by Guatemala City. We do end up being a little bit closer, and we are going to deal a little bit of damage, but not really anything that seems to be able to affect the outcome of this duel. Um, I'm looking at this sign and I'm thinking, what is this? Austria, um, Switzerland, everything, Netherlands, everything's crossed through my mind at some point. I end up going Denmark there. Definitely not the best way to end the video, but we are going to end here. I will see you next time with more GeoGuessr content to reach master rank, and let's do this thing.